Dr. Sidral has the presentation, so he's going to start us out. So, Francisco, if you can do that.
Yes. Good morning. How are you doing? Or
Hello,
good
doctor.
afternoon, or good evening, I guess, right?
Yeah. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody who has joined us today.
Are you actually in most of the people are in India right now?
We have a major chunk of people joining from India, but we do have a lot of people joining from different parts of the world. We have a few from Canada, we have a few from Sweden, some joining from the US. So it's really good to see the diverse crowd that we have today. So we have a few participants joining us on Zoom, and we are also live streaming this session on our YouTube and Facebook channels. So to get started, again, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to one and all joining us from across the world for this amazing seminar series called the Unravel seminar series that the Science and Spirituality subgroup of the Infinite Youth community has organized. It's been a pleasure to be part of this organizing group as such, to get to interact with some amazing people and to let you know some insights of what science is trying to unravel in the space of spirituality. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our two amazing speakers. We have Dr. Patrick K. Potter, who is an award-winning author and an educator, entrepreneur, and speaker himself. He has been awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020 from IAFNR. He is the founder of BrainTap, which is an amazing tech that distinctively is designed to activate the brain's neuroplasticity. And this app has won the 2019 Health App of the Year at the CES at Las Vegas, and also been awarded the Best Sleep App of 2020 by Men's Health Magazine. Dr. Potter has also been featured in the Wall Street Journal and Business Work, and has been an advocate of a lot of self-help products that he works on. And joining him is his colleague and the scientific officer of BrainTap. We have Dr. Francisco Sidral joining us here. So he's an MD and a researcher himself. And so without further ado, I would hand it over to Dr. Potter and Dr. Sidral to take over and guide us through your amazing research and enthrall the audience from here on. Over to you, Dr. Potter and Dr. Sidral.
Sure.
Okay.
So,
would it be possible to share the screen? We have a presentation that we prepared. Okay.
Yes, I think you can do that now.
there you
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let me see if this better. Can you see the whole of the
There we go.
presentation, I think?
go. It's on now.
Okay, perfect. Very good. All right, so the theme of our talk is Defects of Heartfulness Meditation on human physiology. And we're gonna talk, I'll talk a little bit at the beginning, and then let me admit it. Some people are still joining over here. Yeah, two more. Okay. Yeah, well, we already very nicely introduced. I don't know if Patrick would like to say anything in addition to what was already said.
I think that's fine. I did a clubhouse with them yesterday, so I think that everybody knows who I am. So yeah, if you want to those are just our credentials, and of course you can look them up online. I think let's just roll into the actual presentation so they can.
Okay. Yeah, one thing that I would like to say was I was introduced to Heartfulness Meditation about 2 years ago, on a trip to India, actually. Patrick and I were invited to talk at two different events and two medical conferences, one in New Delhi, the other one was in Bangalore. And then we were introduced there. I was introduced there to meditation and to Heartfulness Meditation more specifically. Even though I practiced yoga in the past many years ago, I never got into the meditation part of it. And interesting enough, in about, I think it was 3 years ago, the lab that I work out of in Brazil, Lab of Experimental Neuroscience, we actually wrote a paper on the effects of meditation on pain and inflammation, because that was my specialty when I did my master's and my PhD. I specialized in neurobiology of pain and inflammation. And there was one of the students in the lab, a PhD student, that was very interested in the effects of meditation because she's been practicing it for a long time. So we wrote this paper. We did, it was a review paper, but it caught my attention. I was very curious about the effects. And then when I went to India, Patrick took me there actually to those different conferences. Then I was introduced to meditation, and during the trip, one of the events that we had was at a I would say like an ashram in Bangalore, and we had a big temple where the conferences were upstairs in the top part of the temple, which was in the format of a pyramid. We had a meditation room, and then people would meditate every morning. So I was introduced to it there, and from that day on, I never skipped a day. Every day I've been meditating, and I can feel the difference. And I guess probably my wife can feel it even better than me, because she says that I'm much calmer, much more relaxed and everything. So anyway, so that was the Patrick has an interesting story about that day, right?
Yeah. I looked over, and Francisco was in full lotus doing his breathing techniques and that. I know it's not necessary to do that. I asked him when we got done, I said, how long have you been meditating? He said, I haven't. I'm like, wow, he just fell into it. I mean, he's just a natural. So I told him he must have been an Indian guru in a past life or something, because he just went right for it. I mean, once he started learning about the yogic transmission and using heartfulness, he just it was like a duck to water. He just loved it. So it was very, very interesting.
It was very interesting experience, because when I looked, Patrick was right next to me, and then 5 minutes later, I looked, he was not there anymore. And I told him, man, I was there just like for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And he said, no, you've been there like for an hour. I didn't realize it. It was very interesting. And I have to say, it was life-changing experience for me. From there on, continue meditating nonstop. So I was not sure if this group knew about Heartfulness Meditation or is already into the practice of Heartfulness Meditation. So most of you are already practicing Heartfulness Meditation. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could do a little review, because people will get curious if they post this online. So I think let's go over it a little bit, because we want to also introduce people that have never heard of Heartfulness. We're hoping to spread the word and get people to start practicing. Okay,
so I'll be preaching to the choir here, but we talk a little bit about it and what it does, and then some of the research results that have already been published with Heartfulness Meditation specifically. And then I wanted to bring you a couple of publications. There is a lot out there. It's very well validated, but I wanted to bring you a couple of very interesting ones showing the effects on the brain, not specifically with Heartfulness Meditation, but with meditation in general. And then Dr. Porter is going to talk a little bit about how we use technology in the case of an audiovisual brain entrainment device to enhance the practice of meditation. So I think this more or less summarizes what we're going to talk about. So Heartfulness Meditation is a very simple technique and very subtle type of practice technique that, the main goal over here is to connect us with the light and the love in our hearts. That's why it's called Heartfulness Meditation. Connects you with the source of love, with the source of good feelings of light in our hearts. It's a very simple practice. You just have to concentrate on your heart, and then everything happens from there. And it's a tradition that is been around for quite some time. Probably started there at the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century. The first master of the Heartfulness Meditation was Physiology. You can have all the information that we were talking about here if you haven't visited yet, but take a look at the heartfulness.org. That's the official website of the Heartfulness Meditation group. And then we had some masters over the years, and most recently Patel, who we call Taji, who is now in charge of the development and the expansion of Heartfulness Meditation in the world. It consists of 4 daily practices that combined have a very good effect on the overall physiology. And one of them is the simple art of relaxation. That's something that we generally forgot these days. We're so stressed, trying to do our tasks and because of business, because of school, because of the day-to-day activities. And this is the major source of all sorts of problems that we have nowadays, is not being able to relax. Because when we get excited, when we get stressed, it engages a part of our physiology that is a little bit beyond our control, and conscious control. That's called the autonomic nervous system. So it's a part of the nervous system that completes their functions in an unsupervised, let's say, way. That's why it's called autonomic. And it engages generally the sympathetic aspect of it. It's divided into parasympathetic and sympathetic branches, and the sympathetic has to do with the fight or flight reaction, the mode that sets us ready for either to fight or to run. That was developed over the millennia when human beings evolved, and it was very important for survival because it determined if you would going to survive or not if you faced some challenges. You either run or you fight, but the idea is to survive. And we engage this automatically. We don't even realize when we're in a situation of stress. The problem is it's very hard to disengage. We're just keeping that fight or flight mode most of our time. And these techniques, these ancient techniques, they help us overcome that, feel more relaxed, disengage the sympathetic, increase parasympathetic activity, and that influences the whole physiology. So relaxation techniques reduces tension in all parts of your body and helps you stay balanced. That's one of the general techniques. Not just during the meditation per se, which is the second practice over here, regular heartfulness meditation. It's going to help your mind to focus and shift from the outside world and all the feelings of craziness and the things that we need to do and the stress and make us whole and calm and concentrated on intuition, expansion of consciousness, of feelings, and all that. So relaxation is not just during the meditation. Actually, we start the meditation process with the relaxation technique, but the idea is that we continue this throughout the day, always paying attention a little bit, am I relaxed? Am I not? Are my muscles contracted or not? We don't even realize. We start engaging into the activities and we start contracting our muscles and we get stressed. So the idea over here is that we need to relax and we need to engage this not only during the process of meditation, but like every day during the whole day. And that would be the key to it. The other practice that is involved in or is a part of the Heartfulness meditation process is the cleaning. That's a very unique type of technique. Not a lot of the other meditation schools use the cleaning part of it. The cleaning is, and these techniques can be very easily learned in the website. And there are videos showing how to do it. It's very simple, but it's very powerful because it helps you get rid of your emotional burdens, of your conditioning. And that part is very important. It's something that differentiates Heartfulness meditation from the other meditation techniques. And then there's the other part of it is the interconnect, or the connection, I would say, even to the source of divinity within ourselves, and gives you a humble and humility and also a very good sense of connection with the world, with the creator, with everything else that surrounds us. So it's a simple prayer that you say in the morning, at night, before you go to bed, before you sleep. And then in the morning, when you pick up your meditation practice, you remember that, and it puts you in that mood, in that state, of calmness and of interconnectivity. So part of the process of Heartfulness meditation is also a stress, fear, and anger detox exercises that you can do that is going to help in the overall process. So I was introduced to the technique there in India, but then I downloaded the app, and they keep uploading it. They do a very good job with that. And they have the videos that explain the techniques. You can follow it. So, I highly recommend it. Apart from the app, which is very easy and to do, I also recommend reading the books. I was lucky enough to get them as gifts, actually, in India when I was there, and they're an essential reading that talks to us. They explain the whole process of Heartfulness meditation more in details, and I highly recommend them. So now to the part of the research that was already conducted with Heartfulness meditation. I have to say that we are engaged in a couple of projects right now, and the research projects that have been kind of deterred a little bit because of the whole COVID situation in the world, so we couldn't start them. But they're in the pipeline, and a couple of them have already been approved by ethics committees here in the US and India and in Brazil. It's a multi-center study, but I hope that maybe in the event that if you have this one again next year, then we can come and talk about the results of our study. I'm going to talk about the results of studies that were conducted, not by us, with Heartfulness meditation. So this first one is very interesting because I was talking about the effects of on our physiology, more specifically on the autonomic nervous system and the branches sympathetic and the parasympathetic, and the balance in between the two. Remembering the sympathetic more activated when you're stressed or when you're engaged into your day-to-day activities, fight or flight mode, and the parasympathetic has to do with digestion, with also relaxation. When you start to relax, when you do breathing exercises, when it activates the vagus nerve, then you have an increase in parasympathetic activity with a decrease in sympathetic. So this study was actually looking at this. They had a total of 30 participants, and they were measuring heart rate variability. They were measuring blood pressure and heart rate during the different stages of the Heartfulness meditation. They looked at the baseline state where people were just, sitting down. And then during the cleaning, which is one of the parts of the Heartfulness meditation, and then during the meditation itself. And then here, the parameters that they're looking at the low frequency power, or the low frequency band, and they were looking at the high frequency band, and they were looking at the relationship in between the two, and also looking at the heart rate. So here you see the baseline. Look at this number, 70.82, and then during the cleaning, it went from 70 to 55, which it was the same more or less that happened when they were doing the meditation process. So this number here, the low frequency band, relates to the activity of the sympathetic nervous system. A little bit, some in the literature say that it's a combination of both, but it's more into the sympathetic part of it. So you see that there was a decrease in sympathetic activity from 70 to 55. And simultaneously, what we saw was an increase in the high frequency band that is related to the activity of the parasympathetic. So from 30 to 44. So you saw a decrease in sympathetic and an increase in parasympathetic activity, both during the cleaning and during the meditation practice. And then this is an interesting marker because you're looking at the balance in between the two. I'm sorry, is there a question there? No, okay. So this is looking at the relationship in between the two, and then you see here the baseline was about 3. And then with the practice, it was closer to 1, which means, they're much more balanced. So 1 would be the perfect balance. So this was a very, and you also saw, of course, a decrease in heart rate, which corresponds to being more relaxed. So this was a very simple yet very effective way of showing that it is actually directly interfering or influencing, I should say, our physiology, specifically the balance in between the branches of the autonomic nervous system. This other study was looking at a questionnaire is a little bit more robust because it had about 300 and something people that participated. Part of it were people that were doing a conference program that was talking about Heartfulness meditation, and the other group that was not in the conference, so didn't do the practice itself. And then it was looking at a questionnaire that is related to burnout and emotional exhaustion. And then you see that before and after, there is a huge decrease with a statistically significant difference in between the before and after. And with the control group, you didn't see that. So this is a statistically significant result upon the emotional exhaustion score of people that were in a conference and doing or experiencing Heartfulness meditation. Another very, very good example. This one was published in 2017, and I was looking again at the effect of meditation on Heartfulness meditation, specifically on burnout, emotional well-being. But it took a step further, and it was looking at a very important marker in our cells. It's called telomere, which is the last little tip or the last part of the chromosomes. It's in all the different chromosomes that we have, and what happens is, when the cell starts to replicate or to divide, mitosis, and then we do that all the time. Every time it does that, depending on the circumstances in the environment, there is a little bit loss of the DNA material, specifically in the telomere part of it. So this is really associated with aging. It's associated with a lot of stress situations. It's associated with not being able to replicate itself correctly. Over time, we start to look different because we get older, because we're making a copy of 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 ourselves, and eventually, we look pretty old, and then we pass because of this. And this is one of the major markers. So it's very easy to measure telomere nowadays. It's just a swab, and then you can measure the activities. It's known that very good diet, that exercising, that less stress and mechanisms to cope with stress can actually elongate telomere, have the reverse effect on aging. And this is very, very interesting because we're looking at subjective evaluations like the way that I feel, my well-being, my burnout, where we also looking at something that is there in every cell, which is the telomere. So that's what they did in this study, and I thought it was pretty cool and pretty interesting. So here is the results of the scores, and they actually used something that is called the Malish Burnout Inventory that looks at emotional exhaustion. They looks at depersonalization and personal accomplishment feelings. And then you could see that in the meditation group, there was a decrease in the burnout and exhaustion, decrease in depersonalization, and an increase in personal accomplishment. And all these results are, this one and this one are statistically significant. P minus 0.001 and a 95 confidence interval. That it didn't happen with the control group. So here we have a very good effect on those specific evaluations, but we also saw a very good elongation. Like, this is huge. Here there is an increase, but look, it's 0.04, 0.06, so it's very small. And in this group, the difference from 1.03 and 1.07 is not statistically significant, so we cannot say that these two groups are different. But over here, it was like almost a 10%, increase. It's still not statistically significant because it should be 0.0. Oh, it is. Sorry, it's below 0.05. So statistically significant difference in about a 10% increase in the telomere. This is very, very significant. So, of course, I recommend that you read these papers in full. I mean, I've just given you like an overall idea. This other one here, they were looking at the impact of Heartfulness meditation on reducing stress in nursing students. So we know that nursing, medical students in general are under a very stressful situation all the time. And so I thought it was a very interesting study to do. and a technique that can be used, not only for the patients, but also for the people that are at the hospital, providing service to the patients. So I really like the idea of the study. And then you can see a decrease in all the baselines, less worry, increase in joy, decrease in tension, decrease in the overload, or the feelings that they have about the overload at the hospital. So the comparison over here shows very impactful results as well. So the next one is interesting because it's looking at a heartfulness based program for middle school. And we had, Patrick and I had the pleasure of talking to Dr. Ranjani, and she's a joy. She's a great person, and she's doing a phenomenal job with heartfulness meditation here in the US with the school kids. And so they created a whole session, and that consists of meditation, social emotional learning, promoting self-awareness. And it was a program that was introduced at the schools, and very, very successful. And she has a couple of publications, and most recently I was working together with her, Patrick and I, on another project with the school student and heartfulness meditation at school. So it's a very, very good work that she's doing. And the results are, we're looking at what we call a perceived stress scale. So it's a scale for stress, and it's a self-reported scale. And we see here statistically significant decrease. Over the semester, it's expected that you get more stressed because you're doing more activities, you're engaged in your exams and everything else. So, but what happened was, with the group that was doing the program and the heartfulness meditation, we saw the opposite. They got less stressed, whereas the control group actually showed an increase, again, statistically significant, on the other direction. So the control group got more stressed over the course of the semester, which is, what is expected, but the people that were doing the heartfulness meditation decreased stress. So this was very, very interesting, because we're seeing, the exact opposite within the two groups. And then they also looked at the mental well-being, which is another, questionnaire-based assessment. Again, look, statistically significant increase in the group that was doing the heartfulness meditation, and then a decrease in overall well-being in the control group. And this, again, statistically significant. So this speaks volumes to the effect of this program in school kids. And I personally think that it should be everywhere, in every school, because not only schools, high schools, middle schools, but also universities. Now, the next two and the last ones that I'm going to show you, those are very interesting because they are cross-sectional studies. So there are different types of studies. There are studies that are called interventionals, that you do an intervention, you get a group, and then you divide in two different parts. One is going to do an intervention, the other one is going to be a control. And then you do your specific intervention, in this case, meditation, and you compare the results with a control. This one is not an interventional study, is a cross-sectional study. So you get a population, a group of people. In this case, it was a very large one. They looked at almost 6,000 people in the meditators and 6,000 people non-meditators. So it's a study with 12,000 people that is going to take a picture, a snapshot, if you will, of a specific population. So what they were looking at over here, they were looking at a questionnaire with people that were meditating and the people that were not, for a specific amount of time. I think it was a couple of, like, 5 years or something. And they looked at the temporal satisfaction with a life scale that is going to measure how satisfied you are with the situations in your life and everything else. So even if you are in the same type of situation, people that are doing heartfulness meditation, they tend to feel more satisfied or happier with themselves, which is a very good thing. And this was what the study found, and statistically significant results. So talking about overall satisfaction with you and with overall, your life. And here is another cross-sectional study, a little bit smaller, it's still very big, because we have about 2,000 participants in one group and 1,200 in the other one. And there's looking at the gratitude, the overall gratitude that you have. And it's another specific questionnaire, is a 6-item gratitude questionnaire that's been, used in research. And again, over here, we see a statistically significant difference between the people that meditate and the ones that do not meditate. So overall, these were the sum of the results that were achieved so far, specifically with Heartfulness meditation. We saw a positive effect in the balance of the autonomic nervous system. We saw a decrease in burnout. In this case, was conducted with nurses or nursing school, which is very interesting. There was also an improvement in sleep and a decrease in insomnia, and as was part of one of those studies, decrease in emotional exhaustion, help with dealing with stress, and gives you a better gratitude, and also promotes life satisfaction. So you live your life happier, which to me sounds very significant. So those were the studies that I could find in the literature that were specifically conducted with Heartfulness meditation. I wanted to show you a little bit more, not specifically with Heartfulness meditation. I'll show you two studies that are looking at defects on your brain, and they're doing that through functional MRI. So this information was collected from the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health in the United States, that is part of the National Institutes of Health, which is the major source of research and validation and promotion of health in medicine and the biomedical sciences in the US, and one of the biggest in the world, I should say, as well. So there's a lot of information there in the website that come from very respectable sources and through validated research that is beyond any doubt. And they're talking about the first studies. There is a lot more, but I wanted to show you some of the first ones that were looking at functional magnetic resonance in the brain and during the meditation process. And this is very, very impressive. And I should say, there's no need for any other proof that this actually changes your brain, because it physically changes your brain, and you can actually physically measure the differences that meditation do or exert upon your brain. So we're looking at a paper that was published in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience, which is a very high impact journal in the area of neuroscience. And it's one of my favorite reads. And this one was looking at the physical differences in a process called gyrification, which is the folding of the cortex of the brain. I don't know if you remember in anatomy that you saw that the brain is all folded. It has to be so that all the cells are able to fit in there in our brain. If we were to expand all the brain, it would occupy the area of your whole house, but you have to put them in this small space. So it's folded, a lot of different folds, so that we have more matter in there and more cells to do the thinking, to do everything else that it needs to do. And gyrification, and each one of those parts are called the gyres. And the gyrification process means that you're increasing the matter of your brain, the amount of cells in there. So that's very, very interesting. And they're looking here at the differences. You can see the differences in this picture. These areas here are the areas that correspond to an increase in between, or the differences between the people that meditate and the people that do not meditate. So the people that meditate have an increased matter or gyrification in those specific areas. And the areas in question are these ones here. So the precentral gyrus, the central part of it, the frontal cortex, has to do with thinking, with everything else. The precentral gyrus has to do with the part that controls your movement. So I think it has a lot to do with the fact that when you meditate, you have to concentrate, that try to sit still on a comfortable position. So you're very much aware at first of your body. And then you're supposed not to be, but that activates that part, so it's very interesting. The insula is a part that controls what we just talked about. It controls the autonomic functions through the regulation of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. So because of that, it also regulates all digestion, respiration, heart rate, and also regulates the immune system. So we saw in the first study that we had a direct effect from Heartfulness Meditation upon the control of the autonomic nervous system and the balancing between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And we actually saw an increase in the area of the brain over here in this study that controls that. So this is very, very interesting to me. And also the last one was the fusiform gyrus that controls visual processing, controls memory, controls multisensory integration and perception. So vision, you know, not just the outside, but the internal, you know, process and everything else. And also memory, dissensions in our perceptions. So this is everything to do with the meditation. And it's very, very pleasantly surprised to see this. Not only that, between the meditators and non-meditators, but we also saw differences in the study in people that were meditating for a longer period of time. So just at the beginning, and there was another study that I'm not showing to you today that shows that if you start meditating after only 8 weeks, you start to see changes. 8 weeks, that's very fast. You start to see the changes, but as you progress in your practice, the longer you meditate, the better you have these benefits. And what does it mean? Not only changes your brain physically, you know, your physiology as a whole, but also it's a possibly anti-age, you know, or an age-defying effect that you can have. Because this other study was actually looking at that, the effects of meditation and aging and the brain aging. And then you see over time, 20 years, you know, 30 years, 40, 50, 60, 7, so on and so forth. You see the control ones are the blue and the meditators are the yellow, and you see a much less, you know, steeper decline. So this is the controls, you know, get the gray matter, you know, gets older faster than the people that are meditating. And this can be seen in the negative correlations between the gray matter of your brain, in between the control groups and in between the meditators. You see a lot less in the meditators. That means your brain is younger. Like Dr. Patrick Porter has been meditating for 40 years. You know, his brain is supposed to be 50 something. It's actually a 30-year-old brain, maybe less, I think, right? And that's the idea, you know, because we're getting older and older, we're living longer, but your brain does not follow. And then we have Alzheimer's, we have dementia, we have all those things that are so bad for us. You know, they interfere with our longevity, that interfere with the quality of life in old age. And meditation is a big key to it, a big key to decreasing the aging of the brain. And you can see that in all different areas of the brain. So that was my part of the talk. You know, I wanted to show you some of these studies, very exciting ones, and I hope that you read over, you know, and there is a lot more out there. I just selected some of it now.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what we mean by brainwave entrainment and talk about how that works in with when we're talking about heartfulness, because everything is in training. So maybe go to the next slide there. So when we talk about what do we mean by entrainment? When you are doing transmission, the yogic transmission, think of yourself like this tuning fork. You are resonating a frequency through your body. And whoever you're sending that to, whether it's to the world in general or to another individual, that transmission is being picked up as a frequency. And this is something in science they call entrainment. So when we say brainwave entrainment, you'll see that people will get into the same brainwave states. You know, like when you look at birds that flock together, or you look at animals that run together, you look at the ocean waves and all of the things that are happening in our universe, everything is in train one to the other. So when you get into the heartfulness state, you're actually setting up this frequency. And one of the best examples we can give you is tuning forks, because that's when you're vibrating and resonating. Like when you think about a guru or a spiritual master, they have a frequency that draws and directs people to them. And of course, they want to raise the vibration or the frequency of others. So go ahead and turn this. When we think about entrainment, we can actually measure this. One of the examples, besides when you look here at the brainwave entrainment and what happens in the brain, we can see through electroencephalograph where we can actually hook up. The brain is electrical, the heart is magnetic. So your heart has a bigger field of energy, but a lot of people don't understand that the heart itself has 4,000 neutrino cells, or what we might call them brain cells, in your heart. So you have this heart brain, and that's where, when Francisco, most of those studies were done with heart rate variability, because we know that the heart is actually the controller of the system. It's not the brain up here. Think of the brain up here like your Google drives, your Google computers that have to log into a mainframe somewhere. Our real connection to the spiritual connection is through the heart. And now more and more of our science is showing that. So we can show when we interfere or we entrain the brain, it starts to go in sync with it. So what we're showing here is how the stimulus, the brain or the heart brain or the brain between your ears or the gut brain, these are 3 different brains we have, they all synchronize. Once they're all synchronized, then it shows up as health in the body. And we're showing here is that they can actually see this through science. So it's not like something in the past where we would just feel good or think we were doing something. Back when we first started in the 80s, we didn't have neurofeedback. We didn't have a way to really measure all this. Go ahead to the next one there, Francisco. When we think about meditation and what we're doing, you can see here that audiovisual entrainment, what we use at BrainTap to help people who aren't able to meditate as easily, or maybe they don't want to dedicate the time, or they think it's too difficult. There's a lot of research out there. You can see 1,327 publications. We were very lucky. Just last week, Ames Institute, using our HRV, just did a whole study on yogic breathing and the effects. So your breathing has something to do with it. So when you're sitting down, whether you're doing your cleaning or you're doing your yogic transmission or whatever you're doing, it's really important that you keep that consistent breath work going. Because when you think about negative emotions, go to the next one. When you go to the negative emotions, we stop our breathing. So when you think about this, we can make this presentation available to you, and you can look at some of these research projects. But when we're talking about the results that we have, there's a lot of research. So when somebody says, we used to say, you don't have to believe this, it's not a religion, it's science. Now religion or spirituality is becoming science. And I said this yesterday for those that were on the talk with me. It's like the scientific people are becoming more spiritual, and the spiritual people are becoming more science, because we're finding that these two different institutions really are merging, because it's all part of the same equation. People want to know, if I spend my time doing this, is there going to be a physiological payoff? And if they do it, of course there's going to be. Go ahead and go to the next one. And we're going to open it up to some questions too at the end. So when we think about what we do, if you haven't seen our headset, you can go over to braintap.info. In there, you can learn all about it. You can actually download the app and have some fun with it if you want. But the headset we're showing here, we're using light. So I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about why we use light, sound, and vibration. And I like to remind people that we're taking ancient traditions and we're turning it into modern science. So these are things that in India, it's really interesting. When we go to India, we always find that they're in your Vedas. We can always find research back in the Vedas that supports what we're doing today in science. It's like they already knew everything. It's just how do they articulate it? So what we're doing is we're not really discovering anything. We're rediscovering it, and we're putting it into the context of the 21st century. We're looking at how can we take these different sciences. So go to the next one. In America here, you skipped one. In America here, we're finding that the brain is more and more, and I think this is meditation. In yoga, they call it Laya Yoga, union of the mind. But when you think about the brain, when we go into our grocery stores here in the United States, and we didn't really go into grocery stores in India, we were taken care of by the universities. But I'm sure if you go through the regular stores, you would see the brain on everything, because there's a population out there, not on this call because you're youthful, your brains are still young and you're immortal, but there's a group of population around the planet that's getting older, and we're finding that there's a burden on the brain. So I think that the 2020s are the decade of the brain, and that's where meditation comes in, because there's 2 ways to really keep your brain in shape There's meditation, which is foremost. We got to get those neurons. When he said that we're neuroplasticity, this means how's the brain transacting between the right and left hemisphere? So we want to increase that. When you do your breathing techniques and you're focusing on that light in the heart and you're broadcasting that, or you're doing your cleaning where you're visualizing the smoke leaving through the spine, whatever you're doing, while you're doing that, you're actually exercising your brain. Your brain is really working. So when somebody says, you know, you're just laying there or you're just sitting there doing nothing, the reality is when you're meditating, you are doing a lot of neurological functions. There is a lot going on. It's not like you're doing nothing. In fact, your brain uses 25% of all the energy of the system. So that's why yoga, when you think of yoga, yoga's main purpose was to prepare the body for meditation. But so many people forget about that. They think yoga is for physical exercise and all that. It's really we have 3 different journeys of energy through the body. We have the spine. In America, we look at that like through chiropractic care. We look at how does energy flow through the spine. In India, you look at the chakra systems and how the energy flows through the spine, but through the energy centers of the body. If it's Chinese medicine, we're looking at how does energy flow through the meridians. Now, the reality is these are 3 of the same thing. They're just called different, they're just called by different names because we can gather that same data. So what we want to do is how can we get the energy flowing through the body, through the heart, up through the brain and nervous system, and then it broadcasts out. I'm going to share with you the science behind the yogic transmissions. I mean, science is proving what's going on. And I just want to point that out so you understand it's a physical reality. It's not a metaphysical concept. It's not just you're imagining it. They can actually weigh and measure these things now. So go to the next one. And I just wanted to you to understand that we put it into an app. We put it into a headset. The solution, we have people all over the world. We're very big at the universities in India, through AIMS, the Gautama Buddha University there outside of New Delhi. We're also in the Nimmans Institute in Bangalore. But our favorite actually in India is the Creative School. We have a school there outside of Bangalore. It's called the Creative School, and they have 160 students. They have a brain tap in every room. They teach everyone meditation, of course. They teach everyone how to do Tai Chi. They have, I mean, what they've done is, I think they have the most advanced education at that school that I've seen anywhere in the world. And it's just phenomenal what they're doing there. And the basics of it, though, is grounded in spirituality and, you know, basically who we are, in remembering that we are spiritual beings having a physical reality, not physical beings trying to be more spiritual. We're simply unlocking our true selves, as it were. So go to the next one. We're going to talk a little bit about why we use light and why we visualize. There's an internal light, a spiritual light. And when you're doing the heartfelt meditation, you're going to visualize that light in your heart. Now, the reality is that inner light, you know, throughout history, gurus have been talking about how their mission in the world is to light that light of the infinite in every heart. You know, that's, if you go back, it doesn't matter what guru you go back and research, if they're written about, they're going to talk about this light. So what Daji is doing now in the Masters of Heartfulness, they found out that we can simplify things. And the main reason is that we all share an energy field. They call it the morphogenetic field, but we absorb energy. Each of us absorbs energy through something called chromophores. And as we absorb this light, now this is the physical manifestation of light. The reason I'm pointing it out is if there's a physical manifestation, there's a saying, as above, so below. There's also a spiritual light that we're absorbing. And when you're around somebody who is, let's say, been practicing, they have the vibration, they basically, the vibrations of love, gratitude, peace, harmony, you can feel that from the spiritual masters, if you were. And the reality is that we're now asked, each one of us, to step up and be that spiritual master for our community, for your family, for yourself first, then for your family, for your community. And that's going to bleed into the world. And there's a physical correspondence that happens, because when you're meditating and you're absorbing this light, you're going to have, they can actually physically and what Francisco was talking about, Dr. Sadral was talking about, was they actually can measure all this now. So I'm giving it more from a metaphysical, but it's really physical because this is science now. It's not just a concept. So as we absorb this light, think of every cell of your body has a battery. And the reason that you charge up when you are doing your meditation is these batteries fill with that spiritual light, and that energy is teeming. Now, the reason that we do, whether it be, most people can only do 10 minutes, 20 minutes or more, or if you're like Francisco, you can do an hour just off the bat. But the reality is that our cells have to learn to take a charge. Now, some people are more gifted to this. Some people can bring in more energy and they can actually feel it flow through their body. If you were here, you can see I can just put my hands out. I can have energy flow through my body. The hair on my hands stands up because I can send energy through my body at will because I've been practicing it over time. So this energy can flow through our bodies. It's everywhere. It's omnipresent. It's not just on Star Wars. This force, this power for good is everywhere. It permeates all things. It's everywhere. But what we can do is we can focus that energy through our mind's willpower, if you will, through our heart center, visualizing it as light being broadcast out into the world, and it can be weighed and measured. So go ahead and go to the next one. I just want to show you how we add light to the equation. Go ahead and click the button. This is if you were to do one of our headsets. And those of you in India, hopefully we're going to be going back to India very soon. You know, our wish is that we get back there. We love going there and speaking at the conferences and seeing the people. And I feel like, you know, definitely I have been an Indian and been there many times because it feels like home to me. So, you know, but what we did is think of this light that we are using in the same way you might think of the light of a candle. So go ahead and go to the next one so I can explain it so it's not distracting to them. But when we think about light of a candle, there's a meditation that has been practiced for years, since recorded history probably, where you visualize a candle. And when you have a candle in front of you, and as you're watching that candle, your breath, they call it a Jyoti meditation because your breath, you're just moving the candle. You're trying to just move the candle a little bit, get the flame to flicker. Well, that flame actually flickers at 10 hertz frequency. So it becomes a training tool for the brain. The brain matches that frequency of the candle and creates 10 hertz frequency. Now, 10 hertz frequency, for those that aren't familiar with how brainwaves work, 10 hertz is alpha. That's where you typically would go during your meditation. So while you're doing your heartfelt meditation, you're going to, when you start to relax and slow down the brain waves, you first get into alpha. And then if you get really good at it, you'll get into theta. Now, if you drop into delta, which some of you might have seen gurus doing this, they call it samadhi, where you're in a state of unconsciousness to the world, but you're super conscious to your inner world. That takes a lot of practice. So most people think that they're supposed to just start meditating and a year later, they're going to drop into samadhi and have all of these spiritual gifts that are part of our reality. But the reality is that it takes time. And the reason I point out this DNA and what Francisco showed earlier in the presentation about those caps on your genes, those caps are what telomeres, they call them. As those telomeres unwind, basically your DNA gets confused, if you will, and it starts reproducing itself poorly. But when science said in 2003, which I'm sure you all were alive as babies then, but you know, during that time they said, hey, we have mapped the human genome, and what they found out was, no, they didn't. They only mapped 1%. And this is where yogic transmission comes in, because when you're doing that transmission, you are literally rebraiding your DNA. You're changing who you are in that moment. Physiologically, you are turning on and off the genes that physically represent you in this physical three-dimensional world. Because we're not really physical three-dimensional beings. We have these containers we call bodies, but the reality is that we are energy. We are infinite. We have, you know, we don't even know even half of who we are, but we're really exploring it. But we know now with the DNA, because this is our interaction. So think of this body like you might think of a hard drive to a computer, and it holds memories. So when you're doing that cleaning mechanism, where you're visualizing the spine and the smoke leaving the spine and all the negative memories. The reason you don't need to remember what it is, when they say you don't have to focus on the event, you don't have to, I tell people it's kind of like this. They go, what do you mean? I said, let's imagine that we went out to dinner, we had a great time, but we had leftovers, which in America we would take home in a little bag and we would put it in our refrigerator. Well, those leftovers would go in the refrigerator, and if it was my house, they would never be touched. So I bring them home because I feel guilty. I didn't eat it all. I put it in the refrigerator, and then it gets pushed all the way back to the back of the refrigerator. And then weeks go by, and I have to go in there and I have to find out what's in that white bag that I brought home from that restaurant. I pull that white bag out, I look inside, and there's something green and fuzzy in there. Now, I don't have to go to the police department and say, can you help me find out who I ate with, what food was in the bag? I just need to throw it out. So think of those memories kind of like those leftovers. You don't have to go to CSI. You don't have to have an investigation. You don't have to blame anybody. You basically have to get it out of the refrigerator. So in our case, we have to get it out of our physical makeup, because those memories become programs that run our system. Every cell of our body, we know through neuroscience that if we had you on the operating table and we knew the right place in your brain to touch with a needle, we could bring back a full sensory memory of every event in your life perfectly. The brain remembers everything. It's our recall mechanism because the memories are chemically encoded into these bodies. So when we're doing the cleansing exercise and we're clearing it, we're literally taking the information and we're neutralizing it. That means when that information is neutralized and we've changed the way that our DNA represents that, whether it be a sickness, like all the things you saw that mindfulness does for the body, lowers cortisol, lowers stress, helps people with different disorders or diseases. That's all because of the flow or the lack of resistance. All these negative emotional states that get put into the body, they cause resistance in the body to the flow of this electrical energy or the spiritual energy that we live in. We live in a soup of this. But the problem is that because of fear, frustration, anger, negative emotions, those become barriers or blocks to us experiencing it. That's why when you sit in the meditation and you have gratitude and you feel the love, you feel the heart center opening up the light, and you're sharing that light with the world, the body responds, and they now know that what would be called junk DNA literally changes. So if you're wondering, how does the guru who went from practicing yoga a few times a day to be sitting in samadhi for hours at a time and gets all these let's say gifts of the spirit, it's because our bodies are designed to have them inside of us all. We have every one of those skills. No one on earth, no one who's ever walked the earth has any skill greater than you have right now. The only difference is that they were able to activate it. So unfortunately, we weren't all given a manual that says, hey, do these 3 things and you're going to have clairvoyance. You're going to have great intuition. You're going to have the ability to heal others. But we all have that potential. It exists within us as a reality. It's just a matter of activating it. And the best way to activate it is to sit in silence, visualize this light coming through us, the spiritual light, broadcast it through the heart center, and use this yogic transmission. Remember, all things that happen through you also happen to you. So the more you project it out into the world, the more you get the benefit of it. So it's really important that we continue to focus on that. Next slide, please. Now, in a physical world, right now, one of the biggest in our practice, where Dr. Sadral and I, mitochondrial health is like the biggest buzzword out there right now in natural medicine, because we know that in the core of every cell of our body, there is light. This light is this mitochondrial light is what is going on. So, you can do the practice, but what I'm encouraging people to do is to get out there, get on a good diet, but also drink plenty of good water, figure out what's going on in your world. And if you're out there in the world, the reason that you want to meditate or do something where you can ground yourself, like a lot of people will meditate on natural surfaces, is because we know that we're a current. When we're visualizing that energy coming from the earth, coming up through our body, science now proved that we earth, they call it earthing, if you've never read about it, but in our tradition here of mindfulness, they're saying visualize this energy coming up for the earth. If you watch the movie about earthing, they've now proven that we actually have a symbiotic relationship between our body and our physical earth. And the reason for that is we are vibrating and resonating, just like those tuning forks we started with. Our brain is doing that. So if all of us were on a spaceship heading toward Earth, and we were to measure the frequency of the earth, it would be measured between 0.01 and 100. And our brain also does that. But our brain is only allowed to do that if our heart is open to doing it. So our heart controls how much our brain can be in harmony with its environment. And part of that, the more harmony we have, the more peace we have, the more tranquility we have, the greater the light that flows through us. So the more stress, the more fear, the more frustration, all of those things, those inhibit the flow of this natural energy, this natural source. Go to the next slide there, Francisco. So when we think about, I just want to go through a little bit of the research just to kind of in a high level, just to show you what happens, because you can improve sleep. You basically, you decrease waking hours on the sleep onset. You increase your heart rate variability. This means you're able to flow. When you do the heartfulness practice or you use a brain tap technology, you're doing meditation, what you're doing is you're building up your flexibility. You're decreasing these beta brain waves and you're increasing the alpha and theta. Now, as you do those things, what happens is you decrease the stress in all of these things. We have found that people actually have lost weight. And when I was in Hyderabad and I was speaking, people were coming up. I mean, I heard people just having miracles happen because they're practicing the heartfulness way. And that's because once we tune into that power, that resource that's available to all people at all times, it's just we got to slow down our brain. We've got to slow down our life, slow down our breathing, focus with our willpower, that energy through our body, through our heart and out into the world. Our body starts to self-correct. There's something called innate intelligence. And this innate intelligence, our body knows how to be healthy. What we have to do is get out of the way and let it happen. So go to the next slide there. And so when we think about these things here, we're talking about, this is a study that we published that shows the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index and what happens. So obviously people are finding they sleep better. One of the biggest problems people have when they have a lot of fear, frustration, and anxiety is they don't sleep well. Go to the next one. And then here, when we talk about heart rate variability, this index here, we were able to increase the heart rate's ability to function 21%. So as you think about improving that function here, that 21%, that's going to help you if you have a stress event. If you practice a form of meditation and relaxation, you're going to have the capacity now. Think of capacity as the ability to handle stressful events. You know, they say we shouldn't pray to God to eliminate our stress, but pray that we get the strength and the integrity to handle those stressful events. So as you think about those different things, you can see the changes here. Go to the next one there, Francisco. So I just want to hit these at a very high level. They can look at these studies if they want in the research process. So go ahead. So here we're looking at reducing the stress. When we published this paper for the Integrative Health, here in the United States, we have Integrative Health Conference. It happens in Ohio every year, or not every year, but every other year. And we presented online. We showed a 38.5% reduction in stress in one session. The heart rate was able to be reduced by 6%. The slower your heart rate, this is something that you see with yogis, is that they have very slow heart rates. So as you slow down the heart, the slower your heart rate is to a certain point, you don't want to slow it down too much, but to a certain point, that's the longer you live. The faster your heart rate, the less likely you are. They say we only have so many heartbeats in our life. So we want to slow it down. And there's no better way than to do when you're sitting and you're doing the yogic transmission and you're monitoring your breathing, and you're breathing out really twice as long as you're breathing in, every time you breathe in, you're going to trigger what Dr. Sadral was talking about, the sympathetic system. It's just natural. But when you breathe out, when you're breathing out, you're turning on that thriving brain. And that thriving brain means your nervous system. And now I'm talking about your heart too. So you're bringing in your energy. And as you breathe it out, that's when you project that you do that yogic transmission. You're breathing that out. You're breathing in, you're storing the energy, you're breathing it out. And that becomes the natural rhythm. And pretty soon you'll find that that out breath is getting longer and longer. And the more you do it, the less stress you'll have, the greater the variability in your heart rate. Go ahead and turn the page. It's actually unfortunate, but you can actually defeat a heart rate variability by doing some of these exercises. So that's why we try to get people that don't know how it's working. Now, when we talk about Seminole College, we did a study with their golf team, and these were high performers, and they already had great concentration and focus. But by practicing this brainwave entrainment, we found that they had a 90% increase in alpha power. So what that means is their ability to concentrate, focus. This is their meditative state. These were kids. They were probably, most of them, the same age as everyone on this call. They were college students, and we were able to teach them with no practice how to improve this in just under 6 weeks. So, and they were able to get these kind of results. Go ahead to the
And I
next
have to
one.
say that they actually won the national championship because of that. And that's
Oh,
what,
yeah.
in the words of their coach, she said they were already excellent athletes, but with with this technology, they were able to relax and concentrate and focus. So when they were there out in the field, they would hit much better balls than the other team, and they won the national. They won not just as a team, but they won number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 individually. So that was very impressive.
Yeah. So you can, all these things that people think are difficult, once you start to use your mind and start to use these meditative practices, you'll find that one of the things with golf, I always tell people that in sports, for those of you that play sports, you're only ever 6 inches away from victory. And that's how you handle your thoughts, your attitudes and beliefs. So one of the things we want to show is, how do you relax when it's time to relax? So they had an 80% improvement in relaxation skills. So what that means is, are they able to switch off and recover from intense concentration? How many times we've known people, and I'm sure no one on this call gets angry and stays angry, right? We all get rid of it. But the faster you can get rid of that anger, I love what Paramahansa Yogananda said. He said, the difference between adults and babies is babies get mad, they get upset, they get over it. As adults, we get mad, we get upset, we form groups, we call everybody about it, we try to justify blame and all of these things. So I think part of it is just, how do we get rid of that? And I think the clearing exercise is the key here, is just sitting and just releasing, letting go. And we can actually physically show that in the studies. Go ahead, next one. So this is the one with weight loss. So we found that here that the average weight loss was 2 pounds. This was just in a short study, I think of 4 weeks or 8 weeks. So they did their session once a day for 8 weeks, and they lost 2 pounds. So of course, if you were eating and doing all the things you wanted to, it'd be even faster. So they were able to reduce their stress. They were able to, and the reason for that, just so you understand, a lot of people give up sugar because sugar is one of the worst things for our body, right? In excess. In moderation, I think anything's okay. But in your liver, let's say you have one stressful event. One stressful event will cause as much sugar as a candy bar, because our liver produces its own sugar because it thinks we're being chased by a tiger or something. So we need to really watch our stress levels, bring them down, because and that's the physiologically, when we're talking about the benefits of meditation on the physiological system, that's probably number one, is to re-regulate, getting the body back into coherence, which means the heart and the brain are now communicating in the right way. I think we're almost done with this, and then we can take questions. So this is just some of the ongoing research that we have. And if you want to go over to braintapresearch.com, you can see Dr. Sadral keeps that up to date and what's going on. But you can go over there and you can actually see all of our research, what's happening. I'm actually doing another study with Dr. Vivek Sharma, who's the head of physiology at Ames Institute. And he's he's actually, I think next month, we're doing something with Daji in the group, and we're going to be presenting this. He's doing a larger study there at the university. So that's the main thing. So you can see these ongoing research papers that we have. So what I'd like to do now, because we have time left over, our time to answer questions, is just if you want to open it up for questions, or if you want to text in your questions, or if somebody wants to ask the questions as they write them in there, we're here to answer questions and basically just help as long as you want us here.
Definitely, Dr. Potter and Dr. Cyril. First of all, thanks a lot. This has been a very, very insightful session for all of us, and shows how science is moving towards spirituality in trying to understand the various aspects of its spirituality and how it's affecting our physiology. Thanks a lot for the presentation and talking to us. So we would now open up to questions for our audience. What we would do is we would request you to raise your hand, use the raise hand option button on your Zoom call, and then we can go in turn and let you unmute yourself and ask your questions if you have any. Yeah,
and probably take this thing off the screen there, Francisco, and then we can just have everybody up in the gallery view, and we can all virtually get together. So does anyone have any questions about, it doesn't have to be about our presentation, just about spirituality and in general with meditation? I'm fine. So does anyone have any questions? Or if not, we could go through and do a meditation. I mean, we could do a meditation with the time we have left as well. So it's up to you.
Hi, this is Shireen. I have a question for you. So we talked about how positive vibrations can affect, and thank you so much for the wonderful explanation. I'm a mindfulness coach as well, but this is so helpful when we understand at a scientific level. What I wanted to ask you is, do you feel negative vibrations can also transfer just as positive vibrations transfer? Can we also be emitting or transferring negative vibrations?
Yeah, I mean, we've all felt it, you know, when somebody walks in the room and they're angry or upset and they didn't say a word, but they're basically projecting it. So these biophotons, they have information. We know that it goes through our body and does it, but we also know that we're broadcasting them. But the nice thing is that just like a room, if you have a dark room and you turn on the light, it's going to neutralize that darkness. So we have to, that's what your heartfelt meditation is doing. It's creating a field around you that actually works as a transmuter. So we can transmute that negative energy. Light is much more powerful than darkness. So we have to keep that example. But if we don't, let's say, work on our shine, if we don't keep our light lit, you know, in going, then we can succumb to those negative emotional states. I mean, it's a reality now. I mean, when they know that there's a saying in America where we say birds of a feather flock together. So people who tend to be negatives tend to hang out together, and people that are positive tend to hang out together. And we have to be the example that says, hey, we're going to neutralize that. So yeah, we can project that negativity. That's why we have to really watch what we're thinking. And really how some people can hide it really well, but most people, it shows up in their physiology, you know, when they're not feeling well. And there's just some people, I say, that when they walk in the room gets a little darker, you know, they kind of zap, we call them energy vampires, you know, so we have to raise their energy, and we can do that. So we just have to staying present is the most important, you know, staying present, bringing light into the experience. And sometimes I'll sit in a meeting and I'll just broadcast light into the room when I know there's going to be an argument or something going on. I don't say anything. I'm just kind of doing my thing. You just keep what a good friend of mine would say, you keeping the highest intention there. So, yeah, so I think we can transmute it. Don't feel like you're a victim to that energy. You are powerful. Everyone on this call, you're more powerful than you know. We just have to own that power and know that power comes from a source greater than us. You know, we have access to that power and that source.
Okay, I have a question, Dr. Potter. First of all, thank you. And Dr. Cyril, thank you for this wonderful presentation. And I have to ask you, like, when in one of the sessions, Daji told us that we can literally transfer love from like one place to another person. So, like, what's the science behind it? Like, how does it happen exactly?
Well, our brains, they now can weigh and measure scalar waves. So that's what the waves that our brain produces, they can weigh and measure a thought. So if people, the thing is that people usually they have to be willing to accept it. So we can transmit it, but if they're not a receiver, so we're going to hold people, we're going to hold the energy for them. We're going to hold them in the state of love and harmony. And sometimes a rock breaks with one hammer hit. Sometimes it takes 20, but we have to continue to send the love, send the energy, because it's got to get through. A lot of people hold on to the anger and the fear and the doubt because they're protecting themselves. They feel like that's the way they don't want to be hurt again. So they create this wall around them, and it's hard to get them to love again. But if we continue to broadcast that love, it's physical. They can weigh and measure it. And there's actually they've actually done there's experiments done by Clive Baxter where he took this is with trees. So they prove the same thing with people, but in his book, they took a branch from the forest off a tree. They hooked an electroencephalograph up to the tree in the forest. They took the branch back to the laboratory. They put the leaf on fire. The tree in the forest felt it. Registered it. Yeah, we did an experiment at a convention where we had a person on stage visualize that they were doing a chiropractic adjustment on someone who was out in the hall hooked up to EEG. They weren't even touching each other. There was a deep cortical response in the limbic brain the moment the doctor pretended to make the chiropractic adjustment. So we're all connected. What we see in the physical world is not reality. It's just a manifestation of this subtle energy that is everywhere. So when you send love, it never goes, that's never a bad thing. Let me
tell you about,
yeah, go ahead.
Just tell you very briefly about one experiment that was conducted many years ago. It was like more than 20 years ago. They put two different meditators, two people meditating in an isolated room that no type of energy would escape the room because of the way that was constructed. And so nothing, no electricity, nothing. And at a specific moment, and they were recording through EEG, heart rate, everything else in the two different meditators. At a specific moment, they asked, now you have to concentrate on each other. So they were concentrating on each other. After a few minutes, in one of the rooms, a light was lit. And that meditator got distracted at the exact same nanosecond. The other meditator in the other room had the same spike. How is that possible? Isn't that amazing? Right? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Patrick. Hi, Dr. Francisco. Thanks for this session. It has been really very informative. Even the yesterday's session, Dr. Patrick Porter gave us the perspectives which we earlier did not even think of. For example, the infrared rays before sunrise, which helps in meditating. In fact, founder of system, this Heartfulness, has written 40 pages about this, meditating before sunrise. But it's been great, listening to every angle. So actually, I was reading over the question answer which we had yesterday, that how the device was able to measure the chakra energy, the meditative energy. I understand that the frequency of each organ can be actually measured. But what I was thinking that the chakra energy are at more pranic level, more subtle level, which may be beyond science, I'm not sure. So if you can throw some light on how those parameters were actually measured through that device. Thank you.
Right. So, and Francisco, you can kind of correct me if I say something, or if you have something to add when I'm done. What's happening is we're sending a low-level current through. So the first pass, we're evaluating the frequencies of the body. And then what they've done is they've figured out if they send another signal through, what's the difference. So it's basically extrapolated through, they call it fractal dynamic mathematics, which is a big name for, they are able mathematically, once they get the frequency of one thing. So we know that there's the spine has energy flowing across the nervous system. So we know what that is. And because we know what that is, there's a subtle energy that they can measure that's going to be the replication of it. So think of the physical form as the gross matter, but there's energy fields, right? We have this causal body, we have all these different energy fields. And because we know the one, we know in order to produce that energy on a physical level, on the physical plane, if you will, there has to be this much energy in the auric field. Now, what we've done is there's something called the Aurawell. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, or the BioWell, I'm sorry, that's what it's called, but it measures your aura. And so we've been able to correlate it with other devices that measure the aura, and it's uncanny how it works. Just like the meridians, they're all measuring the same thing, whether it be the meridians through the body, the spine flow of energy through the body, or looking at the energy center of the chakras. Now, some people have the ability to actually see the chakras or see the energy as well. You know, they have the ability to see auras because we all have this corona discharge. So because it's real energy, you know, in the past, they didn't even know we had gamma brain waves. I mean, now they know we don't even know the half of what our body can do. So they're building instruments so sophisticated. That's why I was saying that spirituality and this kind of physiology are matching, because we're not physical. 99.9% of us is information.
So I'll give you another example. After I did my naturopathic course, I took a 2.5 year specialization in acupuncture. And then later on, I was teaching at post-graduation levels acupuncture courses. And one thing that really caught my attention, then I went into neuroscience, was a device that measures electrical activity or impedance in your skin. And that was the first one that was developed for the acupuncture. Actually was developed out of Physiology lab in Japan, Dr. Nakatami. They developed it, and he wasn't even an acupuncturist. He was looking at the differences, spots in your body that can transmit more electricity. And then his colleague that was an acupuncturist really said, "Oh, the points that you found are actually acupuncture points." He showed on the map, and then they were like, "Oh my gosh, it's the same thing." So at first they were measuring the electrical conductivity in each one of those acupuncture points and give you a means, and then you say, the amount of energy circulated in this meridian is this much. And then you can do an evaluation in between all of them. And then you have some that are in the normal range, some are overstimulated, and some are below. Then you use stimulation or sedation points to balance out the energy. It's all based out of electric differences in the conduction in your skin. And we're looking at the balance of acupuncture points in the overall, system. So and it's an energy, and it's something that people say, well, you cannot actually measure chi or prana, but they manifest physically. And therefore you have devices to do that. There is a lot of publications on that. And that's something that I use in the clinic all the time, and gives you a snapshot of the overall meridian system. The same thing over here. It's a more ethereal energy, if you will, but it manifests in the physics, and you can actually measure it.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, it is the EMF or electrical energy we measure of the cells or the organs around that chakra, and that gives us the overall the level of energy of chakra. Am I correct?
That's the idea.
Yeah, it's measuring the energy through that area of the body, and then that gives us that signal. So let's go to,
Thank you.
I want to try to say your name, Devanshi. I don't know if that's it, so you can. I think I was Indian, but I didn't know how to speak the language too well. So.
Yeah, a lot of people have problem pronouncing my name is Devanshi. So first of all, Francisco Patrick, it was an amazing seminar, and I'm a person who goes by facts, right? So when I learned about gyrification, it was like, okay, this is what happens. So I really love the facts that you put forward. And the highlight of the seminar was, Patrick, when you said that all the things that happens through you, happens to you. So I personally believe that, and I always say that, okay, I don't like this person, he has a very negative vibes, or I love the person because he has a very positive vibes, which I always used to feel. But because of your explanation, now I know why that happens, because of the vibration we always put forward. My question for you is that, supposedly the person has gone through a very negative things in their past, like supposedly 7 to 8 years, and that has been embedded into them, because it's been such long thing, they feel that it's a part of their life, and it's very difficult to find your peace. But finally, when you are at peace, you're like, okay, now we are calm, we are composed, and everything is good in life. And you try to, like, personally, I'm a very empathetic person, and I always try that my positivity should always go to the other person. But sometimes the other person is going through a lot, and their negative energy starts, striking your positivity. So I just want to ask one thing, that suppose you, there's a person you really care about, and you, try to put your positivity to them, but because of their negative energy, it start hindering your positivity, it start hindering your consciousness, or start giving you anxiety. So is it fair for them to do that to you, and you stay there to give the positive vibes, or you just leave that point? So which one you should prioritize? We should prioritize the other person or your own peace of mind?
Well, just remember that think of it like a bathroom drain. They have a block. You have to reach down there and take the hair out so that the drain can go. They don't know how to get it's all about flow of energy. So when you do your practice, if you feel like, I'm going to answer a couple questions that were over here, so while I'm answering your question, so I can knock a couple out. One thing, chromoforms are in every cell of your body. So the energy, what's happening is you're transmitting that energy. So the practice of heartfelt meditation, you're learning to tap into that energy store. Once you tap into the infinite, no one can take your energy. You want to give it away as much as possible. But until you learn, because you're empathetic, you're processing their energy as if it's yours, because you don't know the difference. There's no difference really. We make a difference. Like you're seeing me because I'm projecting light and you're projecting light. But the reality is we're coming from the same light. The underlying reality of everything is consciousness. So we're all connected. So what you're seeing somebody who's hurting, who's in pain, and you want to fix that. But sometimes we can't fix that. We have to just hold them in light, in love, and say they've got to go through their own thing, right? I mean, so but if you put too much effort, like we know they're negative and we want to change them, but we can't change another person. They've got to turn the keys themselves and start the engine of change. We can't start the engine for them. So that's where, when Buddha said all unhappiness stems from unfavorable comparisons. So when you're looking at somebody who's in pain and you're not, and you try to get them to your level, they might not be ready for that. So you give them what you can, but as soon as you feel them tugging at more than you can give, you've got to just let them go. You got to release them. Because if not, you're going to be entangled with them, and they're going to come back to you and want you to save them. They have to save themselves. It's kind of like being on an airplane where they say, use your own air first before you put somebody else on it. So you're sensitive enough that you start to feel it. Other people don't. Now in relationships, they call this codependence, right? So we don't want somebody to be dependent on you, but you want to give them energy. You want to pray for them, send them energy, whatever, but don't, as soon as you feel them sucking you in or that they're pulling it, that's when you have to just say, okay, the transmission is done for the day. You then have to rebuild, like go recharge your batteries by doing your meditation. Then you're back again, you're ready to do it.
Perfect. So even if your intentions were good for that person, but if it hinders your peace of mind, so I believe that's always better to just go from that place.
Right.
Okay.
Because there are people that are energy vampires. They're going to want your energy. They live off your energy. There are people that after they're done talking, they go, I feel so good when I talk to you. It's so great. And then when they leave, you're like, oh, man, you got to go take a nap, because there are a lot of people that when you talk to them, it's like, there's so much work. It's like, why? I just had a conversation. Why do I feel so bad? It's because they're not sharing their light. They're like a black hole, and so you want to give them some light, but don't be sucked into that. That's and that's why you'll see stories of other gurus where they say, they're not ready yet. Give them what you can, but don't get sucked into their views, because that negativity will start to cloud your, we actually, with my therapist, when I had clinics, I had to teach them what I called the brain drain, because when you're around people that need help all the time, you get brought down because you're associated, you're empathetic. So you're like, I know how to fix that. All you got to do is smile and breathe and, be more active. But they don't, a lot of times they don't get it. So just know that when you start to feel your energy drop to a certain level, that's time for you to recharge yourself. And some people actually, I teach them to actually like cut the binds, like visualize that you're cutting, because you're sending energy. And if you're sending it to someone who's just wasting it, you just want to build that field around you. Eventually what will happen is no one will take your energy. You'll have so much energy that it won't. So you just have to keep working at it until you don't ever feel that anymore. And that's telling, so you can only work on yourself. So you bring it through, and pretty soon you'll be around those negative people and you'll be fine. They'll do whatever they want, but they're not going to take you down below your threshold of joy. That's what you want to keep.
Thank you so much. That is a beautiful explanation. Thanks.
Next question. Kartik, I think.
Hello, Dr. Porter. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the previous answer that you just explained. It's just wonderful, and I think it's very important for a lot of us to understand the importance of what you just explained. So I just had the question that a lot of us speak about this abstract idea of mind. We know that there's brain, there's the heart, which is a physical component of a body. But then how do you define mind? Is it something between the two? Is it like a vibration? Or so if you both can just
explain it. I usually explain it like this. They did an experiment on people dying, and there was a movie called Coma where they actually showed it. They actually had people who had given their bodies away to science, and when they were dying, they were weighing them. And the average person loses 3/4 of an ounce when they die. That's you. That's the energy of your mind. When you look at it, we're not these bodies. This brain is nothing. It's a receptor. This body is just like a container. It's not you. But what happens is we start to identify with the body, and we start to identify with our brain. And it's the interface. Think of the mind as the interface, the energy of who you are. And the mind isn't you either. So don't get confused there. You have a soul, right? So we have the soul, we have the mind. So a lot of people, we start to identify with these different aspects. And there's a saying in the Sufi religion, but it's for every religion, it's for everyone. The seer is not the seen. So if you can see it, you can feel it, you can taste it and touch it, it's not you. Because you're the observer. Now sometimes the observer gets sucked into the movie, right? We watch a movie on television, and before long we have to go, oh, that's just a movie. I'm scared because something's going on. We have to remind ourselves that that's just a movie. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves, this is a movie. This is not real. Reality is based on how long something lasts. So in this life, it's just, I love it when gurus in the past have said, of course I'm going to live again, because it's like putting on a shirt. This life I have this shirt, I look like this, and they forgot to manifest my hair, different things like that. So we have all these different issues that are going on, I'm Irish, so I can't be out in the sun, I'll burn, things like that. So these are just the bodies we're in, who we are in consciousness. So I would say our mind is what we've magnetized, because it is magnetic in nature, in that it stays together. The mind is the sum total of all events and circumstances that have happened to you, through and around you in this lifetime. Now, on a soul level, all of those mind experiences, that's the soul's everything on the journey, and more, because that soul, on the soul level, it's infinite. So it's already been to the future. It's already been to the past. There's no time like we organize time here. So the mind gives us a way to organize our experiences, and either prepare for, our mind sometimes feels like it might be letting us down, but it's really our mind just does what we've told it to do. They say that 95% of our life is ran by our subconscious mind. That means I call it the other than conscious mind because it's totally conscious. It's nothing sub about it. Our heart beats 86,000 times a day. We breathe 20,000 times a day. All these super conscious things we're doing right now, our mind is controlling. But the reality is that we're none of those things, because when we go to sleep and wherever we go during the deep levels of sleep and we go into the other worlds, wherever we plug into, those are just as real to our soul as being here in this physical form. So think of the mind. The mind needs to be trained. It's like I tell people, it's like a wild horse. Wherever you want it to go, it likes to go the other way. So we have to keep training it. We have to keep training the mind, and that's where people have trouble with the meditation. Is they think that we're not going to, like, the intuition that comes about through meditative practice or the energy flow. That's really bypassing the mind. If we can put the mind into abeyance, where we can stop that monkey mind and we can say, okay, we need you when we drive our cars or do our homework or do whatever, but we don't need you during meditation. What we need during meditation is we need to tap into our true self, the reality of who we are, which is the energy that is at the soul level, not at the mind level. So that's the way I typically explain it. Do you have anything to add there, Francisco, about that? Or
no, that was very good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Nadish, I think, is that how you say it? You're up.
Good day, Dr. Porter and Dr. Sidril. Your presentation today was very enlightening. So I just want to know if meditation can cure autoimmune disorders like multiple sclerosis, where myelin sheath is destroyed by the immune system. I mean, especially since it is established that there is an alternation in gyrification of the insula. And my second question is if we can help people that are in coma by transferring a part of our energy through transmission.
I'll answer the first one first. Within the I'm sorry, I'm going to answer the second one first. We've had studies where, I've had patients that were in comas that we were able to all meditate and pray about, and then they would start responding using what's called ideomotor responses or unconscious responses for yes and no. So even though they didn't think they were there, afterwards they were able to communicate, but I've never seen anyone come out of a coma because of it, but we've seen them at least have a conversation, because if there's something wrong with the gross matter, I think that obviously there are people that can heal any part of the body, at any time.
Yeah.
So, and then there was a study that, it's not transmission because it's praying, but it was conducted at a very high level university in Brazil, actually. And they were looking at a group of ladies that were volunteers praying for the people at the hospital. So they had two groups, and the people that were being prayed, to, they didn't know that they were receiving the benefits of the prayer. So they have two different groups. They were highly, they were controlled, and they were looking at, so the group meditation, the praying group would have pictures of those people, those volunteers in the intervention group, and would pray for them to get better. And they actually measured a lot of parameters in the blood, including markers for oxidative stress, for inflammation, and everything changed. Statistically significant results in the group that was receiving the benefits of praying, and not the other group. So, it could be similar to the transmission. I would contend that praying is a form of transmission. They just don't know the practice.
There we go.
So yes. their intentions are there, and they're sending God's energy, to that person, even though they're not. Now, Nadish, with all of that, I forgot your first question. So
the first one was if it can cure autoimmune diseases.
Oh yeah, I was going to say. I think because we always, in America, we can't say the word cure. The American Medical Association owns that word. So unless it comes in a pill bottle or it's a surgery, it can't be cured. But we can. I think that Francisco, we're actually doing a study both at Bhopal, Ames Bhopal, and in Brazil on fibromyalgia and using BrainTap, and we're getting great results. So I don't see any reason why it couldn't be used for this. One thing is that they still don't know what fibromyalgia is, but they're saying that it's the crystallization. So we know that through the transmission or through the meditation, you're going to change your pH. And those crystals aren't going to fall out of solution and destroy the myelin sheath that causes the pain, like with fibromyalgia. So that's why we decided to do the study. When you're in that meditative state, your body will start to heal itself. So just know that anything that's happening through the body, it always heals because of our energy. It doesn't heal because of medicine. That's the misconception. Medicine is the reaction. Our body reacts to the medicine. So if somebody believes it's going to work, the placebo effect, placebo means it didn't work. It's just in your mind. The placebo effect is 40% now. That means 40% of a sugar pill will get rid of almost anything. They just have to believe that that sugar pill is going to heal them. So what we know is that if you're going to change, this is where the biophotic energy comes in. So when you're projecting that energy, that yogic transmission, you're going to see them whole in your mind, see them healed in your mind. That's the instruction set you're sending them. Remember, we're 99% energy. So as you send that energy, you're going to help them rebraid their DNA and create the health. So if enough people pray, like Francisco said, there's been a lot of studies that show that prayer works. So transmission could work as well. And think of what's going on with the planet right now. We know that as more people meditate, as more people get into this state of harmony, peace, grace, and gratitude, that it's easier for other people to come along and do the same thing. So every time you do it, you're helping the planet. So whether it's specifically to help somebody with fibromyalgia or just to help the planet become a more harmonious place, we all have to keep working, because this is a time for us all, all really the light workers. When you're broadcasting that light through your heart, it's a time now that is more than ever, because it seems like evil is just taken over, but that's not true. There's more good stuff going on. Than we have to stay positive and just keep bringing the light in. And Swetha, is this going to be our last question? Because we kind of went over. I don't know where we're at. So.
I think we talked 10 minutes more.
Yeah. Good evening to everyone present here. So I just have a doubt here. I've been into the field of, I have been into research for last 2 years, and I've been practicing heartfulness for over a year now. So I've heard the telomere will get enlarged when we practice meditation and all our systems practices properly. But apart from that, today I heard I heard that when you were explaining, you told about the influences of meditation on mitochondria. So I have this doubt. There are very rare mitochondrial gene-related disorders which are passed from a mother to an unborn child during the development of the fetus. So do you think this kind of disease is curable with the help of meditation? And can you just elaborate me the influences of meditation over mitochondria?
Yeah. Well, they know with certainty that when you meditate, you affect 2,300 gene expressions, which means you alter your body every time you meditate. So if we can get them, again, we don't use the word cured because of the FDA, but if you get into that state of harmony, then our body is self-healing, self-regulating. It has an innate intelligence. The God in you and the God in anyone you're transmitting to wants them to be healthy and vibrant. So basically, you just hold that in your mind's eye, and then whatever their karma is or whatever their dharma is at that moment, they're going to get it. So you want to transmit without thought of what the return's going to be. You're just sending the energy. Let their higher self, their God self, if you will, do the work. Don't invest in the end result. But everybody, we're all, when I meditate and I'm seeing the world bathed in light and in peace, I'm not saying that specifically any person. I'm just saying we should all be healthy. We should all be living in a place where we can have joy. There's no reason for all this discord and pain in this world. You know, we could have a very, if we could just get some of the greed and the whatever's going on out there, you know, as we hold the light. So just think in terms of each of you are like, I often tell people we're all acupuncture needles, and the earth is our body, and we're all sending energy into the earth. Every time that we meditate, we're sending energy into the earth, and that energy goes everywhere.
Okay.
So as you meditate, you're healing the world. So all of these ailments, a lot of them have to do with inflammation. I mean, we can obviously diagnose it and say what it is, fibromyalgia, cancer, whatever it is, but it really comes to disharmony. You know, we're not in harmony with our environment. We're not in harmony with our true self. We're not in harmony with our fellow man or woman. You know, it's like everybody's looking for differences, and we need to, especially as heartfelt practitioners, is we need to see the reality that we're all one. We're all in this together. Nobody gets out of here alive. So we need to help each other. You know, we need, for the next generation, we need to build a world within ourselves and project that out so that everybody goes, I want what that person has. What are they doing? Why are they smiling when I'm feeling so bad? Oh, I do heartfelt meditation once a day. This is how I do it. You know, and by your example is going to be the biggest way of sharing this technology to people.
Thank you. Then, the session was completely enlightening to me, and I had a whole new perspective of influences of meditation over human physiology completely. A big thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Hi, I have another question. Can I ask that?
I guess this will be the last question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple of small questions actually. So one is, I'd love to hear your view on collective unconscious. It's a concept that Jung talked about, and within my practice, I've thought about it often, how the collective unconscious kind of connects us. And a related question to that is, do you feel it's possible to perceive another person's thoughts, emotions, just because we're talking about biophotons, we're talking about how we're emitting and we're radiating the energies. So do you think science will be able to check if we can actually feel, when we develop our meditative abilities, a lot of people developing their meditative abilities talk about actually feeling and perceiving thoughts or emotions of another person who's with them or, at a distance.
Yeah. Certain people, I think, let me answer that one first. So certain people are very sensitive. Like we've heard a few of them here on the call. So they have the capacity, we have something in our brain called mirror neurons. So some people have it for athletics, like they'll see somebody do something and then they automatically mirror it. You know, we all know somebody that they see somebody do it once and they can copy it, they can do it. But really what they're doing is we're non-local, which means we're not located in our bodies. So certainly we do know other people's thoughts. We just don't process them. So all of this information, the body is just a place where we go to see through these eyes and ears. But we know now, like even through remote viewing, which is a real science now, through a program called the Stargate Project here, where they've actually shown people can project their minds to different locations around the world with certainty and tell people what's going on there. This used to be just a yogic power, right? You'd hear about yogis doing it. This is just everyday people doing it. So I think the more we evolve as a group consciousness, and we all share. I mean, we just have to look at sports when they use the example of the 4-minute mile in sports, because that was nobody could break the 4-minute mile, but the year it was broke, 12 people broke it, but it was never broke before that. But as soon as somebody broke that barrier, so what I encourage each of you to do is figure out what's the glass ceiling you're going to break, because when you break it personally, you're breaking it for all of us. So think about your own breakthroughs in your life, how you're living your life, because whatever your advancements are, I tell people, my dad, who was a chronic alcoholic, he's literally helped millions of people because he became alcohol free because he helped me. So I became the example and started doing this. If my dad didn't get the help, I probably wouldn't be here right now. It's Saturday morning. I'd be nursing a hangover. This is, I would have been, I'm Irish, so I should have been out drinking last night. I shouldn't have been meditating, but we have a choice. Our genetics, we're not forced to only 20% of your genetics are your parents. 80% are the foods you consume, the water you drink, the attitude you have in consciousness, the activities you participate in.
Happy
You're turning those
genetics.
genes on and off all the time. So we can't blame it on our parents anymore. We've got to own up to where we're at and start moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that lovely explanation. And thank you so much for this wonderful session.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Potter and Dr. Sittle, once again. On behalf of the Science and Spirituality subgroup of the Infinite Youth community, and to everybody who joined us today on the Zoom call. And I would also like to acknowledge all our viewers on YouTube and Facebook who had joined. They've been pouring in a lot of comments of how insightful this whole session was, and conveying their thanks to you, Dr. Potter and Dr. Cyril. So thanks a lot once again for some amazing thoughts that you shared, and a few lines that definitely has struck a chord with a lot of us, and would definitely want to meet you in person sometime soon in India sometime, and know more about your research. For people who want to explore more about the research, you can visit Dr. Potter's website on BrainTab, which is braintab.info, or braintab.com, to learn about the science and other aspects of this technology that they're developing. And I would like to just conclude with one small announcement on the seminar that we would have tomorrow. Continuing on this Unravel seminar, we have 2 other sessions tomorrow, starting at 6:30 p.m. IST, on epigenetics and spirituality, and on exploring the quantum world, which is going to be again a wonderful session, I believe. So with that, I think I would like to conclude and let everybody absorb into this wonderful session that we just witnessed, and convey our heartfelt gratitude and thanks to Dr. Potter and Dr. Sajjal once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was
Thank
great
you.
being here.
Wouldn't it be great if we could have a gallery picture with Dr. Porter and Dr. Francisco? If everyone can just switch on their cameras for a little bit and we can take a screenshot, it'll be a nice memory.
Yes, that should be amazing. Yes.
If you're on Zoom on your laptop and you can use the reactions button, you can feel free to put up any reaction you feel like. So we'll just wait for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here we go. The second screen. Since you don't know which screen you're on, you have to continue smiling. That's it. We got it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Look forward to seeing you in India when we're there, or around the country here if you're in America. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. A last thought. So we have a very interesting quiz of some sort that we're hosting on our Instagram channel. Please visit HFN Youth, the Instagram channel of Infinite Youth, to sort of participate in this quiz and share your experience and feedback about today's session. It was definitely enlightening and very insightful for me personally, and I hope it is for everybody else. Thanks a lot for staying for so long and till the end of the session. And yeah, we would love to see you again. See all your beautiful faces tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Thank you so much.